Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Hogwarts, A Bit Rebellious as the Dark Lord. Chapter 21. Toto. Mr. Thomas, I think you have misunderstood. I don't have this kind of hobby. I just saw Mr. Harry Potter coming here, so I just came over to take a look. Although Quirrell was explaining, his ugly face and tightened wand showed how angry he was inside. Now he is sure, Riel's is absolutely rebellious. Asking him that kind of question before would have made him unable to get off stage, but now he is spreading rumors that he has this habit. It's a good thing no one else here heard it, otherwise his reputation might be ruined. Voldemort. Whoosh. Does a dead person without a nose count as a human being? ... Riel smiled and said, Professor Quirrell, you don't need to explain more, who doesn't have a little secret? This very unique bird's nest on your head, I think it must be related to something, right? For example, there is something underneath, what do you think? Quirrell was frightened and revealed the reward, thousands of bullets. Voldemort is furious +2-1. Riel squinted his eyes in enjoyment, feeling the sudden addition of magical information in his mind, feeling so comfortable that he wanted to scream in the sky. When it comes to truly special brews, wealth can be found in danger. Is he seeking death? Well, it could be said that he was seeking death, but he was sure that he would not die. This is the Leaky Cauldron, close to Diagon Alley. If something happens, it won't take long for the patrolling Aurors to notice it. In addition, there were all wizards outside, so it was absolutely impossible for Quirrell and Voldemort to take action unless they were blinded by anger. Of course, being targeted by these two people is definitely inevitable, but this is not necessarily a bad thing. After all, these two products are good score-boosting machines, and they are best used to boost emotional points. Let them take the initiative to deal with it, and then let their plans fail later, and it will be easy to increase the emotional value. I don't quite understand what you mean. This hat, my hat was given to me by my friend. It's not to hide any secrets. Quirrell subconsciously held up the bird's nest on his head, and when he saw nothing strange, he spoke with a smile. If you look closely, you can see that the veins on the hand holding the wand are bulging out, and the magic spell is trembling slightly. It was obvious that he wanted to kill Riel's, but everything around him prevented him from doing so. Putting aside whether Riel's really discovered something, the location alone ruled out the possibility of him taking action. Even if he could kill Riel's by force, he would never be able to run away, and then all plans would be ruined. Even the news of Voldemort's comeback will be noticed by the higher-ups in the wizarding world. So he couldn't take action against Riel's, at least not in the Leaky Cauldron. I know Professor Quirrell, if I didn't say it, who wouldn't have a secret? Hey, Harry, how are you? There shouldn't be anyone in there, right? If there were, you would be considered a gangster. Riel's, who was in a good mood, pretended to comfort Quirrell, and then changed the subject after seeing Harry Potter from the corner of his eye. You need to be relaxed when doing things, neither tight nor loose, such as repeatedly jumping horizontally on Voldemort and his baseline. Annoy them first, then pour a basin of cold water on them to cool them down. After a while, annoy them again, and then pour cold water on them to help cool them down. To achieve this, these two idiots have murderous intentions, but they will not give up everything and try their best to kill him. Quirrell is relieved +8, angry +3, Voldemort is strange +1-2, murderous intent +9, Harry Potter is confused +9, nervous +8. Can you always use one word to describe it? Riel's already happy mood became even happier. It seemed that he would be able to drink the primary magic potion again tonight. He was happy, but Harry Potter was about to cry. Even if he was tricked into entering the women's restroom, at least it looked new inside and no one would know. But now, the defense against the dark arts professor at Hogwarts has seen him. He hasn't even entered school yet. If it is rumored that he has a special hobby, then he will really have no chance at Hogwarts. Quirrell forced a smile. Bobo. Mr. Potter, you. Professor Quirrell, I'm not, I didn't, this was all an accident, Riel's can prove it to me, you have to believe me. Before Quirrell finished speaking, Harry Potter interrupted him, followed by a frantic explanation. Afraid that his words were not convincing, he cast a pleading look at Riel's again, hoping that he could help explain a few words. This series of words confused Quirrell, and when he came to his senses, he was overjoyed. If he could use this to threaten Harry Potter, then I'd be afraid of him. Don't worry, Harry, Professor Quirrell is here to use the toilet too. You can talk more, after all, we all have the same special hobby. Riel smiled and waved his hand. I still have something to do. You guys can chat slowly. I'll leave first. Wool cannot be harvested in one day. You must know how to do it step by step and stop in moderation. So he is no longer in the mood to spend any more time with these two men. If you have this time, wouldn't it be better to go back and see what you have gained? As soon as Riel's left, Harry Potter and Quirrell were left staring at each other. Me. Harry Potter stammered and couldn't form a complete sentence. Quirrell said he was offended. After saying goodbye without a smile, he turned around and left. The handle he finally obtained was gone, and he had a strange hobby for no apparent reason. Who could he cry to? For a moment, Harry Potter was left standing there with tears in his eyes and was at a loss. Quirrell's anger +9, murderous intention +6, Harry Potter's worry +9, nervousness +6. After Riel's finished testing and fired thousands of bullets, he was just about to sit down on the bed and take a rest when he heard another announcement. Tisk, what the Dark Lord exploded is not as good as that of a younger brother, and he didn't respond directly this time. A negative review. Riel's really wanted to point at Voldemort's nose and sneer at him, well, if he even had a nose. Quirrell finally fired a salvo of thousands of bullets at him, which was a very powerful spell. But as the Dark Lord, Voldemort only had such a small amount of emotional energy. If there is no comparison, there will be no harm. If you don't have a nose, you might as well step aside and give way to someone more talented. After complaining, Riel's got down to business. System, redeem the primary magic potion. Consume 500 emotional points and successfully redeem a bottle of primary magic potion. The next moment, another familiar test tube appeared in his hand. Riel's had already drank it twice, so he drank it without hesitation. The already full magic power increased again at this moment, and the comfortable Riel's lay down directly on the bed, not wanting to get up for a long time. The first bottle increased the magic power by nearly half, the second bottle only increased the magic power by 1/3, and the effect of the third bottle was further reduced by half, only half of 1/3. According to calculations, it is expected that drinking 3 or 4 more bottles will not have much effect, but my current magic power reserve far exceeds that of wizards of the same age. Riel's clenched his fist. This magic reserve is even more powerful than some weak adult wizards. Again, as long as there is enough magic power and the magic spell does not stop, there will be no enemy that cannot be defeated. If you can't beat it, it only means that you didn't choose the right spell and your magic power reserve is not enough. Directly use the fire shield to protect your body, supplement it with the Patronus charm, and add the non-stop release of the big melon. May I ask how you deal with it? It's too early to think about this now. Not only is the magic power not enough, but none of these spells are cheap. But it's just a matter of time. I haven't deliberately improved my mood this week, and it's close to 800. This is still in the Leaky Cauldron. If it were Hogwarts, it would have to be at least double. Looking at the remaining 132 emotion points, Riel's not only didn't feel distressed, but was actually a little amused. He is not the kind of person who is so ambitious. Compared with those people who are pretentious and wish to be invincible at once. What he values more is the present. Now that he is getting stronger every day, it is only a matter of time before he becomes invincible. Rather than doing a big death to increase his emotional value, he prefers to increase his emotional value that is not dangerous, at least he thinks there is no danger. For example, today's Quirrell and Voldemort, he only dared to play like that because he expected that these two people would not dare to do anything. If there were no other people around, he would definitely be able to understand what the 3 unforgivable curses felt like. Riel shook his head and began to think about what to do next. There are about 7 days left before the start of school. I will probably be able to produce another bottle of primary magic potion in the next few days. By then, I will start far ahead of others. Hermione's photographic memory is really useful. I've read about half of the first grade subject books during this period, and I should finish them by the time I enter school. Oh, by the way, I also need to write this thing quickly. I'm really looking forward to what kind of impact it will have. Riel slapped his forehead, picked up a luxurious-looking book, opened it, and started writing quickly with a quill. This thing is his secret weapon, and it will definitely gain a lot of emotional value when the time comes. You might even get a chance to see a lot of interesting scenes. There were already many people sitting in the Leaky Cauldron in the early morning. Of course, this does not mean that they got up early, it just means that they were drunk and forgot to go home last night. Old Tom, who was cleaning the bar, saw Riel's walking downstairs and greeted him warmly. Riel's, would you like a cup of hot milk and a sandwich? Oh, are you going to go on the Hogwarts Express now? Time flies so fast, half a month has passed in the blink of an eye. Seeing Riel's carrying his backpack and carrying the fat cat and owl downstairs, old Tom couldn't help but feel a little emotional. Riel's mentioned the cat cage and owl cage. I don't think they will let me have my hands free. Thank you for taking care of me recently. In half a month, he and old Tom got along quite well. Although old Tom spent most of the time teasing him or telling about Hannah. But it is undeniable that old Tom is very funny. Even if he is joking, he knows his limits and will not be annoying. Old Tom smiled and said, I think I should welcome you to come again. What, do you want me to give you a ride by apparating? Of course you can also take the night bus. Riel's face froze, he quickly shook his head and refused, and ran out of the bar as fast as he could escape. Just kidding, even if he was walking to take the Hogwarts Express, he wouldn't be able to use apparition again. Seeing Riel's running away, old Tom couldn't help laughing. The other drunkards who were woken up also started laughing when they saw this, but their smiles still couldn't hide the reluctance in their eyes. For half a month, although Riel's often did some pranks, it was undeniable that he was easy to get along with. And it's a pleasure to get along with him, especially when we play pranks together. Riel's can always come up with some weird new ideas. Old Tom is reluctant to give up +5, others are reluctant to give up +7. Well, it's a bit sad, but not much. Ah, dear little wizard, you are welcome to take the night bus again next time. After the conductor said with a smile, the night bus danced away. That's right, I just danced away. Riel's held on to the street lamp and retched again. He was a little lucky that he hadn't eaten anything in the morning, otherwise he would have definitely vomited. Next time, there is absolutely no next time. Even if I lose everything, I will still have to buy a flying dragon as a mount. After recovering, Riel's leaned weakly against the lamppost. He was really speechless. He thought that apparating was already painful, but he didn't expect that the strongest has its own strong hand. There is also a night bus on top of apparating. If apparating is like crushing people and throwing them into a drum washing machine, then night bus takes you to experience the thrill of disco dancing on the road. The feeling is not only dizzy, but also very painful, especially since this thing can jump. He now felt like there was a swelling on his head. Well, there was no doubt that it was caused by a close collision with the roof of the night bus. I don't know if Hermione has arrived. If I had known, I would have taken a taxi. Anyone who likes to do this crap night bus can do it. There is absolutely no way I will do it again. Night bus has permanently lost a customer. After Riel's recovered, he found a luggage cart and threw all the large and small bags onto the luggage cart. Then he ignored the strange looks from the people around him and walked straight to the station. Passers-by are confused +5. Riel's curled his lips and was confused. Didn't he see anyone who went to school? If passers-by knew what he was thinking, they would definitely shout that he was wrong. It's not that they've never seen someone go to school before, it's just that they've never seen someone like Riel's carrying luggage, a cat, an owl, and most importantly, a pot. Are you attending the culinary god school? Who is a good person who brings these things to school? King's Cross Station. As soon as Riel's entered the station, he saw Hermione standing there looking around, and Hermione happened to see him at a glance. Hermione waved her arms excitedly and ran quickly. Riel's. The Grangers behind her were silent, pretending not to see anything. What can they do? Beating a mandarin duck with a stick does not mean beating a little mandarin duck. Hermione and Riel's are friends at best now, so what can they do? Prevent Hermione, who already has no friends, from making friends. How sad was Hermione? Maybe even hate them. Hermione is excited +11, excited +9, happy +9, and the Grangers are helpless +3. Little angel. Although Riel's has seen strong winds and waves in the past half-month, he still couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. They just met, and without even saying a few words, their emotional value reached nearly 30 points. What is this if not an angel? Riel's, I have learned nearly half of the knowledge in the past half-month, especially potions. I heard that the professor who teaches potions is very strict. If you don't understand, you can ask me. How have you been in the past month? And has your cat been named? I named my cat, and her name is Crookshanks. Hermione's mouth was like a small machine cannon, and she seemed to have endless words to say. Her questions were numerous and complex, and coupled with her habit of asking and answering herself, sometimes Riel's couldn't even get a word in. But he wasn't angry either, let alone a machine gun. Even if it was a laser cannon, he was still a little angel. The two talked while walking, standing out among the cluttered crowd. When passing by Sister Gran and his wife, Riel's nodded politely and said hello. Sister Gran and his wife responded with a smile, then pushed their luggage and silently followed the two little ones, quietly looking at the energetic Hermione. It seemed like they hadn't seen Hermione looking like this for a long time. The last time I saw her was half a month ago in Diagon Alley, and in the next half month, although Hermione was smiling, it was not this kind of smile that came from the heart. Instead, it's more like a smile that can be faked so as not to worry them. Their daughter is a little more mature than ordinary people. Platform 9 3/4, I think this is it. Riel stopped and looked at the thick brick pillars in front of him. Hermione also stopped, seemingly unable to finish her words, and looked around the pillar curiously. She had no doubt about Riel's words, but was a little surprised that this pillar was platform 9 3/4. How are we going to get in? Just walk in. Will we hit our heads? Or is there some special spell? If she had read the history of Hogwarts, she would definitely know about platform 9 3/4. But for half a month, she focused on studying and wanted to help Riel's with tutoring knowledge after entering school. I don't have time to read those miscellaneous books, so naturally I don't know these things. Riel's looked at her funny, shook his head and said, no need for any spells, just go in. A Muggle expulsion spell has been cast here. We won't arouse the Muggle's suspicion if we go in directly, so you can rest assured. But before that, I think you should go say goodbye to your family. The school year at Hogwarts lasts close to a year. Although there are owls to send messages, owls cannot convey my feelings of longing. Riel's looked at the Granger couple behind him with meaning. Hermione's smile froze, with some complicated emotions appearing in her eyes, and then she smiled and ran quickly to the two of them. I'm going to be a little witch. Remember not to miss me too much. When I come back, I will perform magic for you. Very magical magic. Although her words were cheerful, if you listen carefully, you can hear subtle tremors and a faint cry. Mr. and Mrs. Granger's eyes were slightly red, but they forced a smile and took turns giving Hermione instructions. A parting conversation ended with Hermione's eyes red, holding back tears and running into platform 9 3/4 with her luggage. Riel smiled and said, I will take care of Hermione, you can rest assured. There was no falsehood in what he said. Hermione was a treasure girl, and she also had a deep love for him. Regardless of the circumstances, he would take good care of Hermione, at least not letting her suffer the same injustices as in the original novel. That wasn't something she should have to bear, and it wasn't her fault. Mr. and Mrs. Granger looked at each other and thanked each other in unison. Thank you, Riel's, Hermione, we will leave it to you. You are her only friend and we trust you to take good care of her. Mr. and Mrs. Granger are grateful +3, Hermione is touched +9, and looking forward to +9. After chatting for a few more words, Riel's pushed his luggage cart into the stone pillars. Hogwarts Express. In the not too crowded carriage, Riel's and Hermione sat opposite each other. Seeing Hermione with red eyes and a bad mood, Riel's persuaded her with some distress. Remember what I said. The separation is for a better reunion, and being separated doesn't mean we won't see each other again in the future. Next time we meet, you have to show them with a new attitude what a great little wizard their daughter is. He didn't say this to increase his mood points, he simply wanted to comfort her. No matter how smart Hermione is, she is only a teenager and has never left her parents. It has been nearly a year since they left her, so it is normal to be reluctant to leave them. When a young boy leaves home and his boss comes back, this is never a very happy thing to say. Hermione is touched +9, happy +3. Hermione sniffed and said in a hoarse voice, "Don't worry, I won't let them down. I will make them proud and make them proud of me." She was extremely firm when she said this, and her brown eyes were full of seriousness. In response, Riel just smiled and didn't say much. In fact, it doesn't matter whether you are proud or not, it's not what parents care about, at least it's not what most parents care about. Time passed little by little, and soon it was time for the Hogwarts Express to depart. A few people wanted to enter the carriage along the way, but after seeing Riel and Hermione inside, they all left with good sense. Although they are only teenagers, they all know what they should know, and the light bulb is not a pleasant existence. Hermione shared with Riel what she had learned from reading at night during the past half-month, and received Riel's approval. She raised her face with great satisfaction, and at the same time contributed dozens of emotional points to Riel's. But soon, she began to yawn, her eyelids began to fight, and she almost fell asleep several times. "If you're tired, just take a nap. I'll call you when you get to Hogwarts. If you can't wake me up, I can carry you up. You know I'm quite strong." Riel's joke made Hermione roll her eyes angrily, but she still obeyed and fell asleep on the table. She had not had a good rest in the past half-month, and now she had experienced great joy and sorrow. It was normal for her body to be unable to bear it and fall asleep. Hermione is +3 for being shy, +5 for being angry, and +6 for being funny. This little girl is really a little angel. Even when you are asleep, you don't forget to contribute your emotional value. I'm asking you, who else can do this? Riel smiled and shook his head, without disturbing her, but took out the luxurious book, held the quill and began to write rapidly. This book looks like one of those magic books at first glance, but in fact it is just a blank notebook. Of course, whether this is used for taking notes or for other purposes is another matter. Boom, boom. There was a knock on the carriage, and Riel saw the people outside through the glass, and suddenly burst out with a bright smile. He put away his quill, stood up with the book in his arms and opened the carriage door. However, he did not invite anyone in, but walked out of the carriage directly, closing the door at the end. Obviously, his gesture was just that he didn't want anyone to enter the carriage. "Harry, I didn't expect us to meet again so soon. My little buddy, how are you doing recently?" That's right, it was none other than Harry Potter who was tricked into going to the women's room. Having said this, Riel still has some regrets. If he could have recorded it with a video recorder, it would have been explosive news. Especially after Voldemort died and he showed it to Harry Potter, the scene. You don't need to think about it to know that it is wonderful. "I'm sorry, I just want to find a seat. The other carriages you know are full of people. I can go to other carriages to have a look." Harry Potter waved his hands in panic, and his broken glasses almost fell off several times. Before he finished speaking, he turned around and wanted to run away, as if he was afraid of Riel's. Harry Potter fear +5, anxiety +9. The system's beep made Riel's smile become even brighter. Seeing that Harry Potter was about to leave, Riel quickly stopped him and continued speaking with a half-smile. "Harry, why are you running away after not seeing me for so long? I don't mean not to welcome you. In fact, I welcome you very much. It's just that my friend fell asleep in the carriage. I was afraid that our conversation would wake her up, so I closed the door and came out to talk." Harry Potter's steps froze. He wanted to run away, but he couldn't move forward. He could only turn his head with a grimace. "Riel's, I'm sorry to disturb you and your friends. I think it would be better if I went to another carriage." If possible, he really didn't want to be in the same car as Riel's, or didn't want to spend more time with him. After all, being tricked into going to the women's restroom seemed like it happened yesterday. In fact, it only happened a few days ago. Every time he thought of this incident, Harry Potter felt angry and helpless, and the bitterness on his face deepened. At such a young age, there is a sense of bitterness and hatred on his face. Harry Potter's bitterness +8, helplessness +9, fear +3. Riel smiled even brighter. Harry, I think my friend will also welcome you very much. Speaking of which, we haven't seen each other for 7 or 8 days, right? I remember the last time we met, Mr. Potter accidentally entered the women's bathroom. Well, I will keep it a secret, so don't worry. To be honest, Harry Potter is really interesting, and he is very simple and easy to fool. It was so deceiving that he felt a little guilty, but this feeling of guilt only lasted for a short moment. Just kidding, he still has to save money to buy a giant dragon as a mount. How can he let such a rich boy go? And he didn't hurt Harry Potter, he just pranked him a few times. Isn't this a normal thing? For example, Ronald's twin brother is the most famous prankster at Hogwarts, and even opened a shop selling prank props. Are they not equally popular? Even became a member of the Gryffindor Quidditch team. As long as pranks are moderate, they will not offend others or harm others. Harry Potter is scared +9, embarrassed +9, angry +6. The system's prompts kept ringing, making Riel's feel extremely happy. But Harry Potter was not so happy. He looked around nervously and breathed a sigh of relief when he found that there was no one in the corridor. If there was something he didn't want to be known about the most, then the incident of being tricked into the women's bathroom a few days ago was definitely at the top of the list. It is said that the male and female toilets in the wizarding world are used upside down, which is completely different from the Muggle world. This is a complete lie. It was obviously such a lie, but he actually believed it and actually went in. Fortunately, there was no one inside, otherwise he would not be embarrassed, but would be executed as a pervert. Harry Potter showed a smile that was uglier than crying. Riel's, I can really go find another carriage. Okay. I will try to keep my voice as low as possible so as not to disturb you and your friends. Finally, forced by the pressure from Riel's eyes, Harry Potter could only walk into the carriage with tears in his eyes. This will be the thing he regrets most in the future, bar none. Countless times in the middle of the night, he secretly regretted why he didn't turn around and run away, but entered the carriage instead. Harry Potter worries +9, fears +9. ... In the carriage. Who do you think you are? Harry Potter, the rumored boy who lived Harry Potter. Hermione, who was woken up, sat next to Riel's and looked at Harry Potter sitting opposite in surprise. Although she didn't read many miscellaneous books, it was no exaggeration to say that Harry Potter's name could be seen everywhere in the wizarding world. In Diagon Alley, there are many products related to Harry Potter, such as baby blankets and so on. The same baby blanket as Harry Potter, your baby can also become the boy who lived. There are not a few things like this, and no one says anything, but they are very popular. So even if she doesn't read miscellaneous books, she still knows something about Harry Potter. Harry Potter scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. I should be the boy you mentioned, but I'm not very lucky. After saying this, he regretted a little and glanced at Riel's quietly. Seeing that Riel's kept reading the book and didn't care about what he said, he was relieved. Then he became curious about the book in Riel's hands. Seeing that Hermione was about to ask another question, Harry Potter hurriedly said, Riel's, what book are you holding in your hand? Is it a first-year magic book? I didn't expect you to be so diligent. You have to study hard even in the car. Harry Potter has helplessness +9, admiration +8, Hermione has curiosity +6, doubts +9. When Riel's heard this, the corners of his lips raised slightly. Good, the fish is hooked. It's not that I love learning, I just saw a very interesting book. Speaking of which, there is your book in it, but... Riel's appeared to be hesitant to speak, wanting to say something but unable to. This made Harry Potter and Hermione, who were already curious, even more curious and wanted to grab the book and read it themselves. The feeling of curiosity is very uncomfortable, as if there is an itching hand in my heart. It makes people want to scratch it but cannot, but it itches fiercely. Harry Potter is curious +9, anxious +9, Hermione is curious +9, anxious +9. Another small 40 arrived in the account. Riel smiled with great satisfaction, and then stopped making excuses. Before the two couldn't help but ask, he raised the book and introduced it to them. The name of this book is Unknown History of the Wizarding World. I got it by chance. It talks about some secrets in the wizarding world. First of all, let me state that this book is not true, but it is guaranteed to be wild enough, and it definitely deserves the name of wild history. Riel stretched out his hand and put the book on the table. It's up to you to read what's written in it and what it has to do with you, Harry. This is a masterpiece that he spent half an hour every day and compiled for half a month. Every item in it can bring a lot of emotional value to the person involved as long as it is shown to him. Of course, what he is writing now is mainly for Harry Potter. There is no way. Who made Harry Potter the protagonist? This is how the protagonist is treated. Harry Potter is grateful +9, Hermione is curious +7, and suspicious is +9. Harry Potter said sincerely, "Thank you, Riels." After saying that, he looked at Hermione first and saw that Hermione's attention was entirely on Riel's. Only then did he tentatively reach out his hand, take the book to himself and look through it. Hermione didn't say anything, but looked at Riel's with a strange look. This book seems familiar. Well, it can no longer be described as familiar. If she remembered correctly, she still knew the author of this book. But she didn't explain it. Since Riel's did this, there must be a reason. Hermione doubts +7. Riel's didn't change his expression, but secretly praised Hermione in his heart. She was truly a little angel, and she did a great job of seeing through things without telling her. It's normal for it to look familiar. The textbooks we bought all use this kind of writing. Noshima, you know, this thing is always interesting. At least I saw a lot of interesting things in it, such as Harry and. At first he sounded like he was explaining to Hermione, but at the end he deliberately stopped and silently observed Harry Potter's reaction. It's so funny, that's the content of that book, and the thing he wrote is in the front. Harry Potter definitely saw it. As he expected, Harry Potter immediately raised his head after hearing this, with a look of disbelief on his face. He looked at Riel's and then at Hermione, suddenly a little shy on his face. Is everything in this book true? Do I really have a fiancé? Or is it a baby marriage arranged by my parents for me? As if he had thought of something, his face became even more shy, but there was a touch of sadness between his brows. Harry Potter is nervous +7, excited +7, expectant +9, Hermione is confused +6, and curious +9. Before Riel's could answer, Hermione snatched the book from Harry Potter's hand and looked through it carefully. Soon, her expression became strange, and she looked at Riel's with deep shock and confusion. The look in his eyes seemed to be asking him, is everything you wrote above true? Is there really such a nonsense? Harry Potter also looked at Riel's nervously and expectantly, waiting for his answer. Cough. Riel's coughed dryly and took the book with a calm expression. Didn't I say it before? Wild history is not true, but it is guaranteed to be wild enough. As for the fiancé, you have to make sure for yourself. According to the book, that person is about the same age as you and should enroll in Hogwarts with you. And the characteristics of that person are very obvious. You just need to look for it. It should be easy to find it. Let's look for it. What if it is real? Just kidding. Come to this point, there's no reason why Harry Potter shouldn't be fooled. If Harry Potter was really that smart, he wouldn't have been tricked into the women's bathroom before. Sure enough, when Harry Potter heard what he said, although he was a little hesitant, the expectation and curiosity in his heart still overcame this hesitation. Just like what Riel said, what if it's true? It's not a bad idea to go and look for it. Maybe you can also find out what kind of people your parents were back then. Having made up his mind, Harry Potter stood up and said very solemnly, "Thank you, Riels, you have guided me in a new direction. I'm going to find that person now. If I find him, I'll ask him about the engagement and my parents." Harry Potter solemnly thanked him again, and then opened the carriage door and left with excitement and apprehension. For a moment, only a smiling Riels and a shocked Hermione were left in the carriage. Harry Potter expects +1-2, is nervous +9, is apprehensive +6, Hermione is confused +3, shocked +9, curious +7. Hermione was dumbfounded. Does he believe it like that? Didn't he see that the ink on it hasn't dried yet? Riels rubbed his nose. Maybe you believe it. Who knows this? Maybe this is true. As he spoke, he picked up the unofficial history of the wizarding world again, picked up a quill and started writing quickly. This thing is not a one-time use, and it will continue to be used in the future. Otherwise, it would be a waste to use it once every half a month. Well, Who will be the next lucky guy? Riel subconsciously wanted to bite the pen barrel twice, but then he remembered that this was a quill pen, and if he bit it, it would definitely be a piece of hair. It's impossible, right? Even if this is true, how did you know about it? You're not. Wait. Hermione sat up straight and stared straight at Riel's, her little face full of seriousness and suspicion, and she looked like she was going to accuse him. Riel's raised his eyebrows and sighed secretly in his heart. He really deserves to be Hermione, the brains and strategist of the Iron Triangle. Although he knew that with Hermione's intelligence, it wouldn't take long to figure it out, but he didn't expect it to be so fast. You're not trying to play a prank, are you? Who are you writing about with those characteristics? Oh my god, this is really an interesting thing. A smile broke out on Hermione's serious little face, completely gone from her previous look of asking for guilt. Although she doesn't like playing pranks or playing pranks on others, it would be a different story if the prankster was Riel's. Just play a prank, it won't hurt anyone anyway. Riel's must have some sense of proportion. Hermione is happy +3, helpless +1, funny +9. I don't know if it was because of the system's beep or Hermione's bright smile that made Riel's feel extremely happy. He held up the unofficial history in his hand and said, "Would you like to come together? I think this is a very interesting thing. For Merlin's sake, please show off your talent. If there is one person who can help compile and write unofficial history, the efficiency can definitely be doubled many times." Especially when this person was Hermione, the efficiency was absolutely amazing. Hermione expects +8, joy +9. Hermione raised her lips slightly, and without much hesitation she moved closer to Riel's, and the two of them looked through unofficial histories next to each other. In this regard, Riel said that he is still young and really doesn't have any special feelings. To put it bluntly, he is a bit alienated. Well, Hermione is too skinny, with no flesh on her arms or anything. She needs to be well taken care of after arriving at Hogwarts. Just like that, the two of them, each with a quill, began to make up random things, and write unofficial history. The two of them had a tacit understanding. After knowing the reason for writing unofficial history, there was no dispute over what to write. For a moment, the only sounds left in the carriage were the two people talking quietly and the sound of quills scratching the pages of a book. I don't know how much time passed, but the two of them put away their quills with some unfinished thoughts and prepared to appreciate their masterpiece. However, as soon as the two people put away their pens, the door of the carriage was pushed open violently, making a loud crash sound, which showed how much force the person pushing the door used. Crabbe, Goyle, come and take a look. Isn't this the mudblood who hopes to enter Slytherin? Tisk, what a coincidence, we meet again. Malfoy held the wand and smiled evilly. Professor McGonagall is not here this time, dirty mudblood, what should you do? By chance he didn't know, but he knew he had been looking for it on the Hogwarts Express for a while. It's all this mudblood's fault, otherwise Professor McGonagall wouldn't have complained and he wouldn't have been reprimanded. Behind him, Goyle and Crabbe also drew out their wands and looked at Riel's and Hermione unkindly. Malfoy's excitement +4, sarcasm +7, excitement +3, Hermione's confusion +8, nervousness +5, anger +9. Others' hatred +6. Riel's comforted Hermione. There was no anger on his face, but a simple smile. Very good. Mr. Bai Mao, the money-giving boy, brought his two younger brothers to give emotional value. He just happened to be thinking about who should watch unofficial history next, but now he didn't even have to think about it, it was delivered directly to his door. Again, he is a bit special, vengeful. Riel smiled and said, "Hey, Master Malfoy, who doesn't know where he is noble, but feels that he is noble. What, are you trying to figure out what makes you so noble? That's really interesting. Tell me about it and it will make me happy too." As he spoke, he crossed his legs and looked at Malfoy with a half-smile. Coupled with what he said, at first glance, one might think that he was educating a child. "I just had to tell you quickly. After I finished speaking, I praised you so much that it was written on your face." Hermione looked at his appearance, a smile flashed in her eyes, and the anger on her face eased a lot. As smart as she is, how could she not see what Riel's meant? Every time she did something and wanted to take credit, her father would act like this and then praise her. But Malfoy didn't take credit with Lucius, and there was nothing he could take credit for, so he couldn't see what Riel's meant. On the contrary, Goyle and Crabbe looked at each other and wanted to remind them several times, but they didn't know how to say it. You can't say that this mudblood treats you as his son, right? They don't know what the result will be for Riel's, but they know what the result will be for themselves. Hermione is funny +9, helpless +1, Malfoy is angry +9, others are helpless +3. A noble Malfoy is a noble Malfoy. Mudbloods like you have no idea what the 28 pure blood families are. If you are brave enough, stand up and fight me. I will make you understand the difference between a pureblood and a mudblood. Malfoy pointed his wand at Riel's, an annoyed look on his face. Although he didn't understand what Riel's gesture meant, he could feel that something was wrong, and what Riel said made him very angry. In his understanding, a noble Malfoy is a noble Malfoy, and there is no reason for being noble. What Riel said were just fallacies directed at him, and their purpose was just to maintain the poor dignity of the mudblood. At least that's what his father, Lucius Malfoy, told him. That's right, if you have the ability, stand up and duel. We can make you understand the difference without Draco taking action. When you come out to hang out, you must not only talk about your strength, but also your background. If a pure blood family wants to kill you, it will only take a matter of minutes. Goyle and Crabbe spoke to each other, showing their arrogant posture vividly. When Malfoy heard this, the smile on his face became even bigger, and the look he looked at Riel's became more mocking. You can rest assured that this matter is our own business. I will not rely on the power of the family. Of course, if you agree to duel with me. Otherwise. Hey, I swear to Merlin's beard, your life at Hogwarts will never be easy. Malfoy held his head high, as if giving alms, as did Crabbe and Goyle behind him. These children of pure blood families have been exposed to magic since they were young, and they began to practice magic after experiencing magic riots. As for Muggle-born children, they still know little about the wizarding world, let alone have access to any powerful magic spells. They are also new students at Hogwarts, and the gap between those born from pure blood or wizarding families and those born from Muggles is so big. Although these can be made up through study in the academy, when you first enter school, this gap is like a chasm, and it is difficult to cross it. Malfoy is proud +9, taunting +6, Hermione is angry +9, others are proud +7. Why does Riel's want to duel with you? Even if you are a mudblood, it doesn't necessarily mean how noble you are. What? You run Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. You want to be powerful when you come out to hang out. Why don't you say that the wizarding world is yours? Hermione couldn't bear it any longer, stood up and started to yell at the three of them, causing them to be stunned for a moment. Although she didn't know what mudblood meant, she could guess that it wasn't a good word. Riel's is obviously so good, he won't do any bigger bad things, he only likes to do some pranks. Why do these people want to duel? Why do you say he is a mudblood? The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. If she hadn't known any offensive magic, she would have pulled out her wand and hit them twice. The Malfoy trio, who had been scolded, looked at Hermione with ugly expressions. They were about to retaliate, but were interrupted by Riel's, who suddenly stood up. A duel, right, yes, I'll take it, but not now. We'll have a duel when we get to Hogwarts. Before that, I think you should first think about how to deal with the entrance examination. Your noble family didn't tell you, right? Oh, I almost forgot. Riel's picked up unofficial history, and after finding what he was looking for, he continued, let me take a look. Oh, here it is. The pure blood family will conceal the Hogwarts entrance examination to test the ability of the heir. Is Mr. Malfoy, who thinks he is noble, ready to face the entrance examination? There is an unwritten tradition at Hogwarts. Every year during the freshman orientation season, the senior students terrorize the new students. He said that Hogwarts has an entrance examination, where he has to fight a dragon, steal insect eggs from the Acromantula's lair, and have a fight with a sphinx. In this regard, there are very few freshmen who are fooled, but there are always exceptions to everything. Every year there will be some freshmen who really believe it and are scared to tears. But obviously, Malfoy was not one of these exceptions. After hearing what Riel said, he curled his lips in disdain. I have never heard of any entrance examination. Only mudbloods like you can believe these crappy books. You have agreed to the duel, I hope you won't disappoint me. After saying that, he wanted to say a few words to Hermione, but looking at Hermione with an angry face, Malfoy closed his mouth very wisely. Just kidding, Hermione was able to fight 3 people by herself just now without even pausing in the middle. He didn't think he could fight Hermione, and his main target this time was Riel's, not Hermione. Hermione could wait until she had the chance to retaliate, there was no need to humiliate herself now. Hermione is angry +9, Malfoy is proud +9, everyone else is proud +5. The Malfoy trio came and left quickly, but in just a short period of time, they contributed dozens of emotional points to Riel's. Riel's was not very happy, not because of Malfoy's provocation, nor because Malfoy was not fooled. Of course, it is too early to make a conclusion as to whether Malfoy will be fooled or not. We will have to wait a while before we can draw a conclusion. Let the bullets fly for a while, and someone will be tempted to shoot, right? The reason he was in a bad mood wasn't because of Malfoy or the others, but because of Hermione. Malfoy and the others are his tools to increase his emotional value. The more targeted at his later emotional value, the easier it will be to increase his emotional value. So he just laughed at Malfoy's words. If the tool was disobedient, he could just beat him 3 times a day. But Hermione didn't know that she was very angry at Malfoy for teasing him, as you could tell just by looking at the mood value. This little girl is like a dynamite barrel that is set on fire, the kind that really explodes. It's not that he was angry with Hermione, on the contrary, he was very satisfied and moved by Hermione. After all, Hermione was so angry because of him. The only reason why she was unhappy was because Hermione was difficult to coax, especially because of him. What if the little angel was so angry that he would be heartbroken? What tool to increase emotional value can be as important as the little angel Hermione? Hermione understands +9, anger +1 too. After Riel's explained the cause and effect, the little angel Hermione once again contributed a lot of emotional value to him. At the same time, he was even more angry with Malfoy, but with Riel's comfort, his anger had dissipated a lot. Hermione puffed her face and comforted Riel's. Don't worry Riel's, I will tell Professor McGonagall about this when we get to the academy. You don't have to go to that duel. It's not our fault, it's Malfoy's repeated provocations. I don't believe Hogwarts can still favor them. Boys and girls at this age are at their most righteous, especially when the ones being bullied are their good friends. She already has a sense of justice, not to mention, Riel's is her only good friend. So no surprise, Hermione once again contributed dozens of emotional points to Riel's, but the emotions generated were really worrying and comforting. Riel shook his head dumbfounded. My stay in Diagon Alley for the past half-month was not in vain. I specially learned attack spells from Uncle Tom. And since I agreed to a duel, I can't break my promise. I will win this duel, so you can rest assured. After drinking 3 bottles of primary magic potions in a row, his magic power reserves were already considerable, far beyond what Malfoy and the others could match. To put it lightly, even if the Malfoy trio came together, he was confident that he would be able to defeat them all in one move. What does 10,000 bullets fired at the same time mean? Please understand it accurately. Moreover, this duel is a good opportunity to increase the emotional value. I chose Hogwarts because there are enough people there. A new Muggle-born student defeated the young master of the Malfoy family. This would definitely cause a sensation in Hogwarts. By then, won't the emotional value come flooding in? Hermione is hesitant +9, curious +9, worried +1 too. Angel, definitely an angel. With another 30 points of mood points recorded, Riel's was in a good mood. Sure enough, it's the treasure girl Hermione. One person can match several others. Well, I'm talking about the Malfoy trio. Look at the gap. The little villain who fell in love with and killed Harry Potter. Even worse than having no nose. Voldemort, watch your words, Hermione warned in a very serious tone. Then you have to be careful, what if those guys use dirty tricks? If you really can't beat them, just admit defeat without any shame. In response, Riel's just listened silently and nodded in response from time to time. But there was a warmth gradually rising in his heart. If the emotion value is high, doesn't it mean how much Hermione cares about him? Because some small things can cause such big mood swings, his position in Hermione's heart is evident. Draco, do you think it's possible that what that kid said is true? What should I do if there is really an entrance examination? Yes, it's okay for us to beat little wizards of our own age. If we go to beat those magical animals with a high degree of danger, wouldn't we be going to die? Crabbe and Goyle looked sad. They were self-aware. If that were the case, they would never pass the test. If the admission test is true, then the only person who has some hope of passing the test may be Malfoy. His parents were both very powerful wizards, and Malfoy, who was taught by them, was definitely among the top 3 in his age group. Can you please ask Merlin to grow a beard and think about it? Do you believe such nonsense? Let's not talk about anything else. We are all from a wizarding family and we can't pass those incredible entrance exams. Tell me how those mudbloods passed. Malfoy smiled disdainfully. Look at how many mudbloods there are in Hogwarts now. Doesn't this mean that the entrance examination is a lie? If it weren't for Goyle and Crabbe being loyal to him, and they would play together until they grew up, he might even shy away from these 2 idiots. This kind of little kid doesn't know any new lies. Not only did these 2 people believe it, but they also worried about it. Malfoy suddenly felt a little tired. Maybe it was because he was much more mature than his peers that he had to bear this burden, right? Malfoy thought smugly, but Crabbe's next words almost petrified him on the spot. What if this entrance examination is only for wizards from each family? My eldest cousin failed to enroll that year, and later went to other colleges through connections. An entrance examination only for wizards from each family. This can also explain why there are so many Muggle-born wizards in Hogwarts if there is really an entrance examination. Malfoy hesitated a little. Is this impossible? Did your eldest cousin transfer to the academy for other reasons? If he just said that the entrance examination was for family wizards, he wouldn't believe it. But Crabbe presented the evidence, and he knew that Crabbe would not lie to him, so he had to think about this matter. Actually, we can just ask the pure-blood wizards from other grades. I believe they will know something. That's right, my little cousin is in the next car. Let's go over and ask to see if it's true. Finally, under the persuasion of 2 young followers, Malfoy had no choice but to go to the next car with a skeptical attitude, and also met Crabbe's so-called little cousin. After the 3 people explained their intentions, the Slytherin snakes in the carriage fell into silence. Several pure-blood snakes looked at each other and in an instant, they reached some kind of consensus. Adrian Pusey, what Crabbe called his little cousin, said with a deep look on his face, "This question is a good question. Actually, we shouldn't say this kind of thing, but we're going to Hogwarts soon, so it's a good idea to tell you in advance, so as not to be caught off guard like we were before." As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the Malfoy trio suddenly changed, especially Goyle and Crabbe, whose expressions were ashen. On the contrary, it was Malfoy. He first observed the faces of the people in the carriage very carefully, and his heart suddenly sank when he found that they all had serious faces. No way, could such nonsense be true? What is that book in Riel's hand? How do you even know this? In an instant, thousands of thoughts flashed through Malfoy's mind, and his expression became increasingly gloomy. Actually, this assessment should be said to be a family test. The assessment for our entrance last year was to challenge us to challenge the Acromantula. But don't worry, the Acromantula is not strong. We only sacrificed 2 people and successfully broke one of its 3-meter-long spider legs. As Adrian spoke, pride and sadness flashed across his face, as did several others. Then, they began to tell the story of their battle with the Acromantula. The story that sounded so flawless immediately made the Malfoy trio believe most of it, and at the same time they were also mostly disappointed. Are you kidding me? An Acromantula over 8 meters tall and more than 10 meters long. The half-cut leg is nearly 3 meters long. Is this a monster? When they came out of the carriage, Malfoy and the other 3 looked pale, their steps were a little sloppy, and they almost fell on their butts when they went out. Thanks to the good guy, Durian, he supported them and prevented the tragedy from happening. You don't have to worry. The content of the entrance examination is not fixed every year. If you are lucky, well, you all understand. Okay, you go and get ready first. We have to continue learning magic. The pressure of competition in Slytherin is too great. It's too great. As soon as Adrian returned to the carriage, he immediately took out his wand and cast a soundproofing spell on the carriage to protect the door locks. Several people in the carriage looked at each other silently, and the next moment they all burst into ear-splitting laughter. The young master of the Malfoy family actually believes this. He doesn't seem very smart, ha ha ha. I don't know who spread the news. Only wizards with family backgrounds will have reasons for entrance examinations. It's true that it's strong. Your cousin is also interesting. I almost cried when I saw him just now. Luckily we are talking about Acromantula. If it were a giant dragon, I think he would have cried. Several people in the carriage burst into laughter, but the three Malfoys outside felt heavy. Unwilling to give up, Malfoy turned around and took his two disheartened followers to find other pure-blood seniors. Then they heard the great achievements of those seniors who bravely fought against giant dragons, captured manticores with their hands, stepped on giant monsters with their feet, and beat them until they cried for their mothers. Whether it's because of their special talents or their meticulous logic, these people tell stories vividly and immersively. At the same time, it also made the Malfoy trio completely despair, and soon this despair filled the entire Hogwarts Express. Well, to be precise, the little wizards from the same family in Hogwarts Express. For a while, wailing sounds came one after another, and those who didn't know thought that something tragic had happened. Malfoy was frightened and revealed the reward. An own goal. Pansy panics +9, Royal panics +8, Crab panics +8, others panic +5-3. Riel, who was watching the sunset with Hermione on his arms, raised the corners of his lips and narrowed his eyes in pleasure after hearing the system prompts. He just said, let the bullets fly for a while, what if someone followed and fired? Malfoy may not be stupid, but he is just a teenager. If everyone around him says so, can he still not believe it? Can he still trust his own judgment? Obviously impossible. The sun is setting, and we are probably arriving at Hogwarts soon. Let's change into wizard robes first, so as not to be in a hurry later. Hermione nodded in agreement, then frowned. What's going on outside? It's been noisy for a while, right? Riel chuckled. We'll find out later when we go out and take a look. Chapter 31. Soon, Riel and Hermione put on their wizarding robes, just as the Hogwarts Express reached its end. Well, a slightly dilapidated station looks a bit eerie under the dim street lights. Seeing that Hermione wanted to get her luggage, Riel's reminded, put the luggage on top, and when we complete the sorting ceremony, a house elf will help us take it to the dormitory. This is written in a school history of Hogwarts. If this were the original Hermione, she would definitely read this in a school history. But now Hermione spends most of her time reading those magic books for study, and doesn't read other books at all. And the purpose of her doing this was just to learn it herself so that she could help him learn, even though he didn't need it. But who could not like Hermione like this? How many people can treat others with the most sincere heart? Hermione loses +3, joy +6. A history of Hogwarts. I will read it when I have time. I will leave my luggage here first. By the way, what is a house elf? Hermione felt a little disappointed, but this loss was fleeting, and then she dragged Riel and asked again. Riel looked at her with some distress and told her about house elves as he walked. He knew what Hermione was missing. She should have read all those books, and she should know all these things, but now. Fortunately, Hermione's joy was greater than her loss, which meant that she was in a pretty good mood and was not very disappointed. Those house elves are so pitiful. I don't think this is good. At least they shouldn't be abused. It's not a pleasant thing. After listening to Riel's story, Hermione frowned, a little angry on her face. Riel didn't think there was anything strange about this. Hermione had this kind of character, and this was the real Hermione. In the original book, Hermione also established the Association for the Promotion of the Rights of Collecting Elves, with the purpose of giving house elves the same treatment as wizards. But it is very helpless, the ideal is very full, the reality is very skinny, it is basically impossible to do this kind of thing. However, Riel would not throw cold water on her, and he would help Hermione when necessary, although he didn't care about these house elves. When we have the ability in the future, we can try to help them obtain fair rights and interests. But before that, I think we should get out quickly now. Riel, thank you, I knew you would support me. Hermione's eyes flashed with starlight, and a bright smile broke out on her face, even under the dim street lights. Hermione is happy +9, moved +6. Riel ignored the system and just shook his head in amusement. Let's go quickly, so as not to be late later. Aren't you curious about what happened outside at that time? I think we will know the answer soon. Having said this, Riel raised his lips slightly. He wanted to see how desperate Malfoy and the others were, especially when they saw Hagrid. Under this dim light, Hagrid's height looks like a giant from a distance, but up close, he is really a giant. Those little wizards who were frightened and crying probably suspected that the entrance examination was a challenge to a giant. That scene. Tisk, you don't need to think about it to know that it is explosive. This was indeed the case. When Riel and Hermione arrived, they saw the little wizards hugging each other and shivering. Well, strictly speaking, they are pure blood and mixed blood young wizards. There are very few Muggle-born wizards, and the few who have them look confused. Hey, little guys, it's getting late. The party is waiting for you to start. Come on. We are going to Hogwarts by boat. Remember, a boat can accommodate 4 people. There can be fewer but not more people. Hagrid stood at the intersection, holding an oil lamp and shouting. His loud voice cut through the night, and his voice was so loud that it was like casting a loud curse. This sound made the little wizards who were already hugging each other for warmth even more frightened, and several of them were frightened to the point of crying. In response, Hagrid could only scratch his messy hair in embarrassment, not knowing what to do. I really don't know what they are crying about. Are wizards all landlubbers and can't swim? Hermione pouted and dragged Riel towards the boat. Seeing this, several other people also walked towards the boat. With the first person to eat crabs, the others were quickly inspired, even the little wizards who were so scared that they cried. There is no other way, everyone is gone, should they be left to fight the giant alone? Riel, can you swim? It doesn't matter if you can't. I'm good at swimming and I will protect you. Don't worry. As soon as Hermione got on the boat, she confidently patted her unobtrusive bag and assured Riel. For her, being able to protect her good friends is a great thing. Riel didn't criticize her nature, but nodded very cooperatively. I can swim, but I'm not proficient. If I encounter danger, I have to ask Hermione to save me. When the little angel Hermione heard this, she immediately smiled and patted her chest repeatedly to promise to protect him. Hermione's pleasure +9, pride +9, anticipation +9. Expect. Riel suddenly felt a toothache. It was obvious what Hermione was expecting, right? Hey, for Merlin's sake, could you make room for me? The sudden sound made Hermione and Riel turn their heads, and they saw a girl with delicate appearance, slightly raised eyes, and a somewhat arrogant look standing on the bow of the boat. A small boat can carry 4 people, as few or as many as possible, and this small boat has Riel and Hermione. So the two of them didn't say much, they just moved inside to make room for the visitor. When the girl saw this, she didn't mean to say thank you, and stepped directly onto the boat, but she obviously had not heard of that old saying. If you take too big a step, it's easy to tear your clothes. In addition, it was probably her first time riding a boat, so she didn't know that the boat was rocking back and forth, so after an exclamation, Riel suffered a precise blow. The warm and fragrant soft jade was in his arms, but Riel didn't care about enjoying it at all. On the one hand, it was overwhelming, and on the other hand, he didn't want to respond to Hermione's expectations. After the boat rocked for a while, it gradually stabilized. As soon as it stopped, Hermione nervously checked on Riel. Riel, are you okay? Riel pointed to the little lily in his arms. I think you should get her away first, otherwise something might really happen to me. He was really afraid that this little lily would struggle in fear later and then take him into the water. Although he can swim, he is only a dog paddler. It would be good if he could protect himself, let alone take someone else with him. Hermione heard this and quickly pulled the trembling girl away. Don't move, otherwise the boat will still shake. If the shaking is severe, it will capsize. I can swim, but that doesn't mean I can swim with 2 people. The little angel Hermione rarely showed her fangs, as if to scold the panicked girl fiercely. The girl who had just remembered to get ashore heard this, and she was so frightened that she did not dare to move anymore. She just clung to the board of the boat tightly, her eyes red as if she was about to cry. In response, Guilt flashed across Hermione's eyes, and then she hurriedly checked on Riel's. Well, a little guilty, but not much. Hermione is worried +9, distressed +9, regretful +5, Pansy is scared +9, proud +3, angry +3. Are you sorry he didn't fall into the water? Riel's mouth twitched a few times, and then he turned his attention to the person behind him. Pansy Parkinson, one of Malfoy's little henchmen. Sure enough, the precise strike just now was an organized and premeditated revenge. This was naked revenge. These 3 points of pride are the best evidence. I'm fine, Hermione. I think we should see how this classmate is doing. Riel grabbed Hermione's flailing hand and turned her attention to Pansy. Just kidding, even though he is young, it still feels very itchy to be touched like this by a girl. If anything happens, he won't play. Am I right, Dream Cat, Miss Pansy Parkinson, is this your first time on a boat? Don't you know that this kind of boat needs to be balanced? If you come up so recklessly, you may capsize the boat. Don't forget that you are not the only one on the boat. Hermione pinched her waist and scolded Pansy very seriously, and Pansy seemed to be obediently lowering her head and listening to the lecture. There was nothing she could do about her disobedience. From the time the boat set off until she was now in the center of the lake, Hermione had been training her for more than 10 minutes, without even a single repeated word. She didn't think about replying, but the rocking boat and the tight-lipped Hermione gave up her thoughts. She couldn't quarrel with her at all. She could guarantee that as long as she dared to say one word, Hermione could quarrel with her a dozen times. She had no choice but to pretend to be obedient, while secretly being angry with Malfoy and the others. If these guys didn't insist on believing in the entrance examination and went to find powerful allies, she wouldn't have to sit here. How come someone who seems to be quite smart usually believes such a lie? And this guy named Riel, couldn't he try to persuade Hermione? Do you just have to watch her being scolded all the way? Pansy's resentment +9, anger +9, and unhappiness +9. Riel, who was staring at the lake in a daze, suddenly lit up after hearing the notification sound. Treasure girl. Another treasure girl. Mom, I found a treasure on a boat. When you wait for me to pick up the hoe, I will definitely pry it from Master by Mao's hand. Hermione, I think you are thirsty. Drink some water, we will be arriving at Hogwarts soon. Riel took out the thermos, opened it carefully and handed it to Hermione. To be honest, on the one hand, he did this to save Pansy and get into trouble, but on the other hand, he was really afraid that Hermione was thirsty. Shouldn't this little angel, who treats him wholeheartedly, be pampered and pampered? Hermione is moved +1, pleasure +9, Pansy is grateful +9, jealous +4. Hermione took the water glass and thanked her emotionally. Thank you, Riel, I just feel thirsty. This time she no longer scolded Pansy, but took sips of warm water while admiring the night view of the lake with Riel. The two of them were together, and Hermione would occasionally point to the crooked tree next to her or the crescent moon in the lake for Riel to look at. Riel naturally agreed to the little angel's request. While admiring the scenery, he also gave a few compliments, which greatly satisfied Hermione's desire to share. Pansy looked at the two figures, her eyes filled with indescribable emotions, which seemed to be envy, jealousy, and desire. Pansy's jealousy +7, envy +9, desire +9, loss +11. Hiss. This treasure girl has a story, definitely a story. Otherwise, it would be impossible to express so much emotional value just because of these little things. Riel turned his head to look at Pansy, and sure enough he saw her looking at him and Hermione intently, with a look of disappointment on her delicate little face. Seeing Riel looking over, the disappointment on Pansy's face was wiped away, and she raised her little face in a proud manner. The slightly red eye sockets and the slightly raised eyelids seemed to be saying, "What are you looking at?" Riel shook his head to get rid of the messy thoughts in his mind, and turned to Pansy and said, "Actually, you can try to sit up and take a look. This boat should have been enchanted so it won't capsize easily. And Hermione and I can swim, so there won't be any danger. Try to sit up and you will see a different scenery, a beautiful scenery." Hermione also turned around and looked at Pansy, who looked hesitant. She extended a hand very considerately. "Riel is right, the scenery at night is beautiful, I think you should want to see it." Although Pansy's previous reckless behavior made her a little angry, the reason for her anger was just worry. Not only was she worried about whether Riel was injured, she was also worried that Pansy would fall. No matter who was injured, it was not something she wanted to see. Riel also stretched out his arm and said with a smile, "Give it a try, you have to take the first step, right?" He didn't do this deliberately, but seeing Pansy like this reminded him of his past self, so he was willing to reach out and give her a hand. Of course, it would be nice to increase Pansy's favor a little bit. After all, no matter how good you are at wielding a hoe, if people have a bad opinion of you and don't have any good impressions of you, then you are just making wedding clothes for others. Pansy looked at the two hands in front of her, and her nose suddenly felt sore. The tension and fear of taking the boat seemed to disappear in this moment. She stretched out her hands and sat up with the help of the two of them, and saw the night view of the lake that Hermione and Riel had always marveled at. Beautiful, really beautiful. This kind of beauty is completely different from the beauty seen standing on the shore, and this kind of person is even more intoxicating. The white moonlight shines on the lake, bringing a little bit of bright light to the dark lake surface. There are strange tree shadows on both sides of the bank, which adds a bit of chill to the night. But this does not affect the beauty of the lake view, but makes this beauty a bit more mysterious. Pansy was extremely grateful and revealed the reward, rapid imprisonment. Hermione is relieved +9, happy +9. Riel is very happy to get a magic spell again. Well, this quick imprisonment and own goal, a perfect match. First, use quick confinement to immobilize the opponent, and then use oolong to get out of the hole, making the opponent and the viper look at each other. Then ask your opponent, "Do you dare to move?" Although these two magic spells are not very powerful together, they are definitely enough to scare people. Riel woke up from his reverie and saw Hermione and Pansy holding hands, looking like they were best friends kissing each other. "Hermione Granger, this is Riel's Thomas, you can just call me Hermione, just call him Riel's." Riel's is a nice guy, but he likes to play pranks, but his pranks are funny and don't hurt others. Hermione seemed to have endless things to say when she talked about Riel's. But this time Pansy didn't feel annoyed, but listened very carefully, and occasionally glanced sideways at Riel's. In response, Riel's just touched his nose and smiled politely at her. He really couldn't interrupt what the two girls were saying, and he had no intention of interrupting. Pansy smiled when she saw this, and her delicate little face looked very attractive under the moonlight. Pansy is happy +9, Hermione is unhappy +3. After hearing the prompt, Riel turned his back very wisely and looked at Hogwarts not far away alone. There is the beginning of magic, the cradle of wizards, and a paradise for him to increase his emotional value. If nothing else happens, he will spend the next 7 years at Hogwarts, and of course, he will also visit other places. After all, the wizarding world is very big, with not only many magic spells, but also many unknown magical animals, and many unknown areas that have never been visited before. These will all be his goals, and traveling through time does not mean he will be idle. Otherwise, how could he afford such a rare opportunity? Hogwarts Harbor. Just follow this door and you'll be in. Professor McGonagall should be waiting for you there. Don't be late. As you know, the sorting ceremony is a very important thing. It would have been better if Hagrid didn't say this, but once he said it, the young wizards who had just recovered immediately turned pale. In an instant, there were cries and howls from the port. "I don't want to fight a giant dragon, I don't want to become a dragon daddy. Mom, I want to go home. I don't want to steal the eggs of the Acromantula, nor do I want to arm wrestle with a giant. Why don't those Muggle-born wizards need to take the entrance examination? This is unfair. I don't want to be used as a barbecue by the giant dragon, and I don't want to be used as a reserve by the Acromantula, and I don't want to be trampled under the soles of the giant monsters. They must have stinky feet." The screams and howls were so sad that those who heard them were heartbroken and those who saw them shed tears. But Riel said it was very good and very comfortable. Just a few cries directly brought him more than 60 emotional points. To this, he just wanted to say, "Keep playing music, keep crying, and cry hard for me." What entrance exam? Before Hermione could finish her question, she reacted immediately. She looked at Riel's, then at the howling little wizards, and hesitated to speak. "Riel's, are you going a little too big this time?" This entrance examination was made up by her and Riel's together. Of course, this is not rigorous. To be precise, Riel's raised this rumor and the two had a serious discussion before writing it down in the official history. At that time, she didn't think anyone would believe it, she just did it for fun, but the reality is, why do so many people believe it? Pansy listened to Hermione's words, looked from her to Riel's, understanding flashed in her eyes. She also said, why is this rumor so outrageous this year? It is well founded and has witnesses. It turns out that it was the handiwork of these two people. Hermione is worried +9, happy +9, Pansy is funny +9, and enlightened +7. Riel's touched his nose. Did we do anything? I don't remember. Is it possible that you remembered it wrong? It's getting late, let's go in quickly, lest we get late and anger the professor later. Laughing to death, at most he just threw a brick in this matter, and these jades behind it were not his handiwork. Let's not talk about whether this matter will be investigated. Even if it is indeed investigated, it cannot be blamed on him. After all, he is just a victim of that unofficial history. Riel's words immediately confused Hermione and Pansy, and the two little girls passively followed Riel's towards the castle. My little head was filled with doubts and confusion. Didn't they do this? Why can Riel's be so arrogant and arrogant? It's not that they didn't know what Riel's meant by saying this, they were just surprised that he could say these words with a change of expression on his face. Hermione is confused +9, Pansy is confused +9, Malfoy is angry +9, resentment +9. Riel's paused, then walked into the castle with the two women without looking back. Malfoy, who cares what kind of wind the white-haired young master has? Anyway, as long as it can explode the emotional value. Malfoy on the other side watched the three people leaving, especially the familiar figure of Pansy. At such a young age, he felt a sudden weight gain on his head, as if an invisible hat had been slapped on his head. Well, that hat is called betrayal. Pansy betrayed them, betrayed the honor of pure blood, and actually chose to associate with those filthy mudbloods. Riel's, Pansy, mudblood. The angry Malfoy didn't care about anything else and walked quickly towards Hogwarts with a few followers. He wants Pansy to take a good look at how big the gap is between mudbloods and purebloods, and wants Pansy to regret her choice. He will definitely shine in the entrance examination, become the brightest star in Hogwarts, and create new glory for the Malfoy family. Then, Professor McGonagall, what are you talking about? There is no entrance examination at all. How is this possible? You see clearly that we are not those Muggle-born wizards. We are pure-blood wizards. There must be an entrance examination, right? Professor McGonagall, you can't fool us. This is also part of the examination, right? Malfoy, who thought he had found a loophole, suddenly became confident again. So many people say that there is an entrance examination, can it still be groundless? After all, what those people said was reasonable and well-founded, without any loopholes. And who has no grievances against them, why should they lie to them? Hearing Malfoy's words, the pure-blood and mixed-blood little wizards who were still a little confused came to their senses. Yes, just like Malfoy said, all this is just a part of the assessment. Oh, praise the smart Malfoy. Malfoy folded his arms and glanced at Riel's not far away with great satisfaction, as if to say, look, such a simple test cannot defeat him at all. Mudblood, just marvel at Master Malfoy's intelligence. Malfoy is proud +11, excited +9, Professor McGonagall is enlightened +8, others are proud +34. Riel's didn't care about Malfoy, or anyone else, but Professor McGonagall's understanding. Well, she was indeed an older cat lady who understood everything. But if I act like I don't know anything, I didn't do it, I don't understand this, I would like to ask you how to deal with it. Riel's looked surprised, with a hint of doubt between his brows, as if it was the first time he heard about the entrance examination. Hermione and Pansy didn't have his acting skills, but they were neither stupid. They both looked at their noses and their hearts, and they even pretended to have a few discussions. Seeing Riel's appearance, Professor McGonagall's eyes flashed with confusion, followed by a deep smile and helplessness. This guy acted really well, but he was just too good, otherwise she wouldn't be sure. With such a big thing happening on the Hogwarts Express, wouldn't Riel's and Hermione know about it? The way they look now is really unreasonable. But she wasn't going to say anything. Although she knew who the culprit was, it was just a little joke, wasn't it? It's a little joke that happens in previous years, but this year more people seem to be fooled. Well, this year's little wizards are not very smart. It is also possible that an inexperienced little wizard led a group of inexperienced little wizards astray. Yes, it's you, Draco Malfoy. Professor McGonagall is enlightened +1, funny +7, helpless +8. The corners of Riel's lips suddenly twitched, and the pretended curiosity on his face broke instantly. This was a skill he had practiced in the orphanage for several years, and yet it was so easily broken by Professor McGonagall. Is there really a cat lady who knows everything? Isn't this what he got high with? Really? Mr. Malfoy, believe it or not, there is no entrance examination at all. It's getting late. Professors and your seniors are waiting. Don't waste time. Come with me. After Professor McGonagall finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards the banquet hall behind him. She thought something had happened, which made her worried for a while, and she almost wanted to go out to take a look, but this was the result. As soon as Professor McGonagall left, Riel's hurriedly followed with the two girls. What a joke, why don't you leave quickly and wait to be chased and intercepted by the anxious white-haired young master and the others? For a moment, only Malfoy and a few pure-blood or mixed-blood young wizards were left outside the banquet hall. The little wizards looked straight at Malfoy, as if asking if this was still part of the assessment. This caused Malfoy's already cracked Taoist heart to shatter into slag. Before the little wizards could ask, he rushed into the banquet hall with a livid face and clenched his fists. He now wants to question the group of senior wizards. Even if Riel's lied to him, why would others lie to him when they have no enmity against him? But he knew that he couldn't do that, as it would only humiliate the Malfoy family, and he would have to resist everything today. The young master of the Malfoy family can play pranks on everyone, but he cannot be the one who is played by the pranks. But the price is that his reputation plummets, and he may even be ostracized and targeted by his peers. It's all Riel's fault, that mudblood. He planned all of this. And his stupid book. Malfoy was extremely angry and revealed the reward, 1,000 gold galleons. Hermione is happy +9, Pansy is funny +9, others are annoyed +68, and funny +1055. Riel's grinned from the corners of his mouth to his ears. How can one word describe this? It's so exciting. The only regret is that what Malfoy revealed was only gold galleons. A bad review, a bad review. As for the annoyance expressed by the pure-blood and mixed-blood young wizards, there was also the amusement expressed by everyone at Hogwarts. He could only give it 9 points, well, 10 points out of 10. 1 point less was for fear of making them proud. In the banquet hall, Riel's and the two women stood in the front, followed by Malfoy, who was glaring at him with red eyes, and the pure-blood and mixed-blood little wizards with unhappy expressions. Who can be happy after being treated for nothing? Well, the little wizards and professors at Hogwarts can rejoice, and of course the one who started it all, Riel's. At this time, at the tables of the 4 branches, the little wizards of all grades looked at the little wizards above and laughed. Especially the Slytherin snakes. As participants in this event, they can be said to have a sense of accomplishment. Hey, do you know what Crabbe's reaction was when he heard that we were fighting an acromantula? Yes, he was so scared that he almost cried. You don't know how funny it was when the young master of the Malfoy family came with a group of young wizards to ask us how to fight the dragon. I don't know who spread the news about this. He is really a prank genius who is not weaker than the Weasley twins. I am optimistic about him. Guys, we 2 brothers are good people, we never play pranks, we just occasionally entertain our mood. These comments were like arrows, accurately inserted into the hearts of the young wizards. Their faces, which were already unhappy, became even more gloomy, and even their eyes looking at the initiator, Malfoy, were a bit angry. Feeling the murderous eyes behind him, Malfoy's body stiffened, but he could only hold his neck and pretend to be calm. Just his bloodshot eyes, the bulging veins on his forehead, and the angry look he looked at Riel's all showed how angry he was inside. He, Draco Malfoy, has never suffered such humiliation. Malfoy's anger +1-2, hatred +3. Riel's raised his eyebrows in pleasure. The emotion value recorded today was the most he had recorded in 2 years. Dong dong, dong. The glass was knocked, making a crisp sound, and the noisy banquet hall instantly became quiet. Quiet, we are going to conduct the sorting ceremony. As you know, this is something that everyone is looking forward to. Hannah Abbott. As Professor McGonagall finished speaking, a girl among the young wizards stepped forward timidly. The senior wizards from the 4 major branches all became extremely quiet at this moment, looking at her expectantly. That sentence is correct. The sorting ceremony is definitely the most anticipated event, bar none. The newly admitted little wizards also poked their heads, wanting to take a look at the so-called entrance examination. Professor McGonagall smiled and comforted. Don't be nervous, you will be fine soon. Hannah sat down on the chair nervously, and the next moment Professor McGonagall placed the dirty sorting hat on her head. The wrinkled part of the sorting hat opened and closed slightly, as if it were a mouth. Well, I think I already know where you should go. Hufflepuff. The shout of the sorting hat's sudden raised voice spread throughout the banquet hall. The next moment, there were bursts of applause in the hall, as well as the excited shouts of the Hufflepuff school badgers. The professors on the stage also applauded and sent heartfelt congratulations. Hannah blushed and shyly walked to Hufflepuff's table and sat down. Professor McGonagall continued. Next, Hermione Granger. Hearing her name, Hermione couldn't hide her nervousness and anticipation. She turned back to look at Riel's with some confusion, opened her mouth to say something but couldn't. She wanted to ask Riel's if she could choose to enter the same academy with her, but she felt that she shouldn't be so selfish. Hermione looks forward to +9, regrets +9, and nervousness +9. Thanks to the little angel Hermione for sending me 30 points of emotional value. Riel smiled, understanding what Hermione was regretting, and raised his hand to touch her head without hesitation. No matter which house we are assigned to, aren't we all in Hogwarts? At most, the dormitories are different. Besides, if we are assigned to the same house, we won't live together. Of course, if you're afraid, I can also apply to see if I can get a mixed-gender apartment. What's the best way to relieve tension? The answer is to divert attention. Making her shy is the best way to divert attention. It turned out that this method was indeed effective. Hermione, who was still nervous at first, blushed and rolled her eyes angrily. I didn't realize you were still a pervert. After finishing her rant, Hermione walked quickly to Professor McGonagall, sat on the chair and waited for the sorting hat to be placed on her head. Hermione is shy +6, annoyed +7, moved +9, Pansy is suspicious +9, wary +7. Riel's frowned and turned around to see Pansy tightening her collar and looking at him warily. Seeing him looking over, Pansy took several steps back, as if she was avoiding some bad guy. The corner of Riel's mouth twitched a few times, and he secretly complained, "There is no meat in the whole body. Although I have never eaten meat, I am not so hungry." These kids are really mature. They know so much at the age of 11 or 12. It seems like they have to protect themselves. What if one day they get anxious and go to bed in the middle of the night for fear of a night attack? Boys, you must learn to protect yourself outside. Gryffindor. The sorting hat shouted again, followed closely by warm applause. Professor McGonagall picked up the sorting hat and smiled. Welcome to Gryffindor. Thank you, Professor McGonagall. Hermione thanked her very politely, winked mischievously at Riel and Pansy, and then walked over to the Gryffindor table and sat down. Hermione +9 for anticipation, +9 for excitement. Riel touched his nose and shook his head helplessly. He might have disappointed the little angel Hermione. Gryffindor wasn't right for him, at least he didn't think it was right for him. Although there is a protagonist group there, he doesn't really like the atmosphere there. There are too few people looking for trouble, and it's hard to raise his mood points. Draco Malfoy. Malfoy sneered when his name was called, glanced at Riel's, and strutted over to Professor McGonagall. He had just sat down, and before the sorting hat was even placed on his head, he shouted, "Slytherin." Malfoy stood up proudly, glanced at Riel's provocatively, and then walked to the Slytherin table. Malfoy is proud +9, sarcastic +9. Riel's touched his nose. This kid still needs a lesson, but it doesn't matter, he can just teach him a few more lessons in the future. Harry, the students in Slytherin are all dark wizards. There are no good people there, including that Malfoy just now. You should be careful in the future and stay away from those wizards in Slytherin, they are bad to the core. This familiar brainwashing words, this familiar smell, Riel's looked sideways. What came into view was a red-haired boy with a dark spot on his face, whispering to Harry Potter. Obviously, this is the least likable person in the Iron Triangle, Ronald Weasley. Riel's chirped twice. Suddenly his life would be interesting in the future. Especially with a character like Ronald, it's easy to explode, but I don't know how much emotion he can unleash. Riel's Thomas. Professor McGonagall's voice brought him back from his thoughts, and Riel stepped forward calmly with a smile on his face. Hermione and Pansy, Malfoy and Harry Potter were all watching him closely. The former is looking forward to which college he will be assigned to, while the latter wants to wait for him to make a fool of himself and have more reasons to mock him in the future. Hermione's anticipation +1, Pansy's anticipation +9, Malfoy's curiosity +9, and Harry Potter's curiosity +9. Riel's ignored the system prompts, frowned and said, "Hi, Professor McGonagall, can we discuss something? I wonder if there is a cleaner sorting hat. I feel like it's all patinated." Riel's pointed at the dirty sorting hat, his face full of disgust. Fortunately, it didn't smell strange, otherwise he would have turned around and left. He didn't deliberately cause trouble this time, he just couldn't stand it. He is not afraid that the sorting hat will pry into his inner secrets. After all, occlumency is not something he learned in vain. The main thing is that this thing is dirtier than you think, and the patina is putting it mildly, really. Professor McGonagall is speechless +9, Dumbledore is funny +11, others are happy +157, and annoyed +13. Riel's rubbed his nose and it seemed that he was not the first one to be dissatisfied with the sorting hat. On the high platform, Snape frowned. This kid really dares to say anything. Isn't it bad to dare to say anything? I think this kid is very interesting. Severus, don't be so rigid. Flitwick asked with a smile. The sorting hat is indeed dirty. This is an indisputable fact. If it were not for the magic to remove the smell, this banquet hall would probably not be able to entertain people. Snape looked at him indifferently. I'm not being old-fashioned, I just think he's wasting his time. I still haven't finished making the potion. Flitwick spread his hands and said that he was helpless. He was not proficient in potions and could not get off the field to ask Riel's not to waste time. Severus, today is the entrance for new students. I think you shouldn't be so serious, otherwise those little wizards will be afraid of you. Dumbledore tilted his head and took out 2 strange flavored beans from his sleeves. Want some? They're very fresh. Snape gave him an expressionless look, and Dumbledore immediately understood what he meant and had no choice but to put the strange flavored beans into his mouth with regret. When eating, I didn't forget to cover it with my sleeves. It felt like I was sneaking snacks in class. Dumbledore smiled. Hey, it's strawberry flavored, I'll just say I'm lucky. Several professors rolled their eyes, and no one answered the old naughty boy's words. Dumbledore was not annoyed, but just shook his head regretfully. He murmured, "No one understands my happiness, it's all too superficial." Single quote. Little wizard, I don't think you should come to Hogwarts, you should go directly to Azkaban. I'm obviously so clean and my spirit is so noble, but you actually call me dirty, but I'm carrying 4 people. Woo-woo. Before the sorting hat could finish speaking, Professor McGonagall pinched the folds that resembled the mouth and forced it to shut up. Professor McGonagall said with a half-smile, "You know, this thing is not only unhygienic, but sometimes it is very nagging. Several times I wanted to give it something as clear as a spring. But it is right, it carries the will of those 4 people. We should respect him, Riel's, don't you think so?" Professor McGonagall is happy +9, others are happy +51, and impatient +25. Riel's touched his nose and said nothing more, otherwise he would definitely become the target of public criticism. After all, there are several young wizards behind him who are not assigned to colleges. If you waste any more time, you can definitely fill up their resentment points. Riel sat on the chair. Professor McGonagall, after the sorting ceremony, please help me wash my hair with a magic spell. It is best not to mess up the hairstyle. If you can't resist, then accept it. If you can't change the world, then change yourself. However, he still made a note for the sorting hat in the little notebook in his mind. On the evening of September 1st, Hogwarts sorting ceremony. The Sorting Hat refused to clean itself, which made me want to wash my hair. I made a special note of this and prepared to take cruel revenge on it in the future. Would you like to add some shampoo for you? The shampoo I use is pretty good, it smells good and nourishes your hair. Ahem, we're starting to separate hospitals. Professor McGonagall didn't react until he was halfway through speaking. He quickly changed the subject with a dry cough, and at the same time put the dirty Sorting Hat on Riel's head. The Sorting Hat pouted. Well, it is undeniable that although you are naughty and have a bad personality, you are very talented and have the largest magic reserve of any little wizard I have ever seen. You are very smart and like to read. You should be a good fit for Ravenclaw. No, let me think about it again. You are brave and very suitable for a Gryffindor. Where would you become a brave lion? That's not right. Let me think again. It's hard, it's really hard. Riel's had veins on his fists. This guy definitely did it on purpose. He just wasted time on purpose. Just wait, if you don't let it taste the taste of a super speed drum washing machine, he will wear this hat for the rest of his life. The Sorting Hat seemed to sense his anger, and couldn't help but grin and said, I know you are angry, but don't be angry yet, it's not over yet. I think you are a good fit for Hufflepuff. It will teach you to be united and friendly to everyone around you. Before it finished speaking, Riel's interrupted him with a cold face. Have you ever tried the feeling of being thrown in a whirlpool of water? I can guarantee you that I will cast a magic spell on the front-loading washing machine to make it spin super fast, and it will definitely wash you dry. Dry, clean. The Sorting Hat shuddered. Slytherin, this guy has to go to Slytherin. For Merlin's sake, get me off his head. Quick. Professor McGonagall is happy +1, Hermione is funny +9, Pansy is surprised +9, Malfoy is angry +14, Dumbledore is happy +12, others are happy +74. Riel's, who received another large sum of emotion points, was not very happy. Who can be in a good mood with a dirty, noisy and squirming hat on their head? Professor McGonagall pulled the tip of the hat and lifted the Sorting Hat. I thought you would come to Gryffindor like Miss Granger. What a pity. By the way, do you want to try my shampoo? It's really useful. She wasn't lying. She had asked Snape to prepare the shampoo specially, and it used a lot of magic ingredients. Although Snape looked stinky when she asked him to prepare shampoo, the product he prepared was absolutely reliable. In response, Riel said, please let me try it. As a result, a scene that could be recorded in the history of Hogwarts occurred in the banquet hall. The deputy headmistress of Hogwarts, Minerva McGonagall, holds a bottle of shampoo in her left hand and casts a spell with a wand in her right hand. Washing the hair of a new little wizard, in public. At this moment, both the professors on the high platform and the young wizards in the 4 major branches felt that their cerebellum was shrinking. They didn't come back to their senses until Professor McGonagall used a magic spell to dry Riel's hair. Riel said with satisfaction, it smells great, thank you Professor McGonagall. If possible, I think I can use this again next time. You can always trust the older cat lady. The products she chooses are reliable and spot on. When he makes more, he can give it to Hermione and the others to try, I'm sure they will like it very much. Professor McGonagall glanced at the dark-faced Snape on the high platform with an unclear look. I think your Dean Snape would be very willing to teach you how to make it. Just kidding, do you really think you won't have to adjust it for her after you adjust it once? She has plenty of ways to make Snape give in. Professor McGonagall is proud +14, Snape is angry +11, and others are shocked +121. The system prompt made Riel's feel even happier. Then I have to ask the dean for advice. I didn't expect that a walking bat could do this, but it makes sense when I think about it. After all, he is a master of potions. Why not mix a shampoo with his hand? After bidding farewell to Professor McGonagall, Riel's walked cheerfully towards the Slytherin table. He has not forgotten that Master Bimau's emotional value is still there waiting for him to harvest it. Hermione is disappointed +13, Pansy is happy +11, Malfoy is angry +14. Tisk, it seems that there is no need to harvest, the emotional value will be delivered to the door by itself. Riel's curled his lips in boredom, and when he looked at the Gryffindor table from the corner of his eye, he felt a flash of guilt. He actually wanted to be in the same branch as the little angel, but it was a pity that Gryffindor had a protagonist group, which would attract a lot of attention. Moreover, Gryffindors will not have independent dormitories, unlike Slytherin, where hidden prefects can enjoy independent dormitories. In addition, the little snakes in Slytherin are basically pure blood, and their strength and identity will be stronger than those of the little wizards in other colleges, and they can contribute more emotional value. Again, when it comes to money, strength is not enough, and love between children will only become a burden. There is no reason why he can't do things like assassinating babies, and there's no reason why he can't hold others hostage. What? His assassination failed and he was killed instead. Tisk, it's so embarrassing. You have no nose. Voldemort. Lawyer, find me the best lawyer right away. I'm going to send him to Azkaban, Azkaban. Comma. You consider yourself a noble Master Malfoy, but it seems that your wishes were not quite met. I finally entered Slytherin. It seems that Master Malfoy's wish has come true again. Oh, by the way, you should know that it will be very interesting for you to act smart. Riel's grinned, grinning with his teeth bared. It's a good thing I couldn't hold back my laughter, otherwise I would have disturbed Master Malfoy's intelligent speculation. I understand, this must be part of the assessment, right? As he spoke, Riel's pretended to be the same as Malfoy when he spoke. Not to mention very similar, he could only say that he was exactly the same. This time, the little snakes who originally looked a little weird started laughing. In contrast, Malfoy had an extremely ugly expression and a cannibalistic look in his eyes. Malfoy was extremely angry and revealed the reward, Tarantella dance. Pansy is funny +1-1, others are funny +6-4. Tarantella, that curse that forces others to dance. Riel's touched his nose and raised the corners of his lips slightly. It looked like there was a dance to watch tonight. He hoped that Snape wouldn't be so angry that he overturned his cauldron. However, he had to sigh with emotion. The pure blood family was indeed a pure blood family, and their heritage was indeed strong. Although these spells are not lethal, it would be difficult for a Muggle-born or even a half-blood wizard to learn them. At least it is difficult to learn before entering Hogwarts, and don't think about it in the lower grades after admission. At most, he could learn a repair spell, a lock-opening spell, and the like from a first-grade magic book, but he couldn't even learn a levitation spell. After all, even a floating spell can cause damage if used improperly, such as shooting oneself in the foot. Riels, I think you still remember our agreement, right? You won't forget it, right? I think it will be fine tomorrow at noon. I hope you won't cry and beg for mercy then. Malfoy's expression was a little ferocious, and no matter how much he restrained himself, he still couldn't stop his body's instinct. If he could, he really would have jumped up and cast a whole set of spells on Riel's to let him know who he had messed with. But his remaining sense told him no. Let alone whether he could succeed. Even if he succeeded, the reputation of the Malfoy family would definitely be ruined. He could even think of the content of the Daily Prophet. Shocked, the young master of the Malfoy family actually did such a thing at the Hogwarts entrance banquet. Close double-angle bracket. The young master of the Malfoy family actually attacked his classmates at the Hogwarts entrance banquet. Close double-angle bracket. Lawless, Draco Malfoy openly took action at the Hogwarts entrance banquet. Close double-angle bracket. Thinking of this, Malfoy still had some uncontrollable anger, as if he had been suddenly poured a basin of cold water on him. His heart was cold and his heart was soaring. He must wait until he is ready tomorrow before taking cruel revenge on Riel's duel. If you don't tell me, I almost forgot. How about it be at noon tomorrow, just in the corridor outside the banquet hall? I think if we move faster, we should be able to catch lunch directly. You know, the food at Hogwarts is very good, at least that's what the book says. Riel's waved his hand indifferently, and when he talked about eating, he didn't forget to touch his hungry belly. To be honest, he hadn't eaten for a whole day. He refused Old Tom's breakfast in the morning and was on the Hogwarts Express at noon. Hermione was sleeping at that time, and he didn't want to wake her up, and he didn't feel hungry. By the time she woke up, it was already past meal time. The lady selling snacks is also off work. Why is she off work? Well, I have to ask Mr. Harry Potter, can he really eat it all after buying so much? Malfoy curled his lips disdainfully. Then your idea may be ruined. Even if you kneel down and beg for mercy, I won't let you go easily. He didn't think he could lose, especially to a mudblood like Riel's. Are you kidding me? He is the young master of the Malfoy family. His parents are both extremely powerful wizards. How can he still defeat a mudblood who has just entered the wizarding world? Malfoy is disdainful +10, Pansy is worried +6, others are curious +4-5. Riel's raised his eyebrows in pleasure, but did not answer Malfoy's words. There was no point in saying this now. No matter how many useless words you say, they can't be as powerful as a slap. Ding, ding ding. The sound of the glass being knocked sounded again, and the noisy banquet hall instantly became quiet, and everyone looked towards the high platform. Dumbledore stood up. Before the banquet begins, let me say a few words. The first thing is that you must not break into the dark forest behind the academy. It is a forbidden forest. In addition, Mr. Filch asked me to remind you that the corridor on the right side of the third floor is also a forbidden area. If you don't want to die miserably, don't go in. The last idiot. Cry. Residue. Screw it. Dumbledore opened his arms slightly. Okay, that's all, let the party begin. The next moment, all kinds of exquisite food appeared on the tables in the four branches, and the banquet hall became lively again. Hey, Pansy, can you get me a chicken drumstick? Oh no, get me two. I have to make up for it. There are other shows tonight. Pansy, who was sitting on the left side of Riel's, rolled her eyes. Can't you get it when you stand up? Although she said this, she still reached out and took out 2 chicken drumsticks and handed them to him. Riel's took it with a smile. Isn't it more delicious if you feed it? It's gratifying. The little girl has a movie, doesn't she think he is a pervert? Then he would act like a pervert to her. Although he has no experience, as the old saying goes, if you haven't eaten pork, you haven't seen a pig run away. As a master of theory, why can't he tease a teenage girl? Then he deserves to be single for the rest of his life. You, daughter, indeed a pervert. I'll tell Hermione later and tell her to stay away from you. Pansy moved to the side pretending to be disgusted, pretended to be calm, finished speaking, and began to concentrate on eating, ignoring Riel's. The shyness in her heart can still be seen from her blushing side face. Pansy is shy +14, Malfoy is angry +11, and resentment is +7. Riel's held the chicken drumstick, glanced at the angry Malfoy, and gnawed on the drumstick happily. I just like the way you look at me and don't like it, but you can't do anything about it. A banquet ended in a very pleasant atmosphere. In order to replenish his energy and participate in tonight's entertainment show, Riel's even pestered Pansy to get him several chicken drumsticks. Then he finished the chicken legs with enjoyment under Malfoy's fire-breathing eyes. At this moment, he deeply felt the joy of green tea, and even had the urge to talk about tea. The elder brother just asked the younger sister to get 2 chicken drumsticks. The younger brother was so angry. He was so stingy. Brother, I don't have any bad intentions, I just like to eat the chicken legs delivered by my sister. Ah, my brother has never eaten the chicken drumsticks fed by his sister. I almost forgot, my sister stopped playing with her brother and started playing with her brother instead. Ha 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 ha. Please ask the prefects of each grade to take the little wizards back to the dormitories in an orderly manner. As soon as these words came out, the little wizards who had eaten and drank enough stood up one after another. The meeting was over, the meeting was over. Slytherin's dormitory is at the bottom of Hogwarts Castle, next to the Black Lake. It can be said to be under the Black Lake. However, the bedroom has been enchanted and does not feel damp. From the window of the dormitory, you can even see various fish swimming in the lake. Well, there is also a big octopus. It seems that there will be squid to eat in the future. Riel's looked at the huge octopus flashing past the window and subconsciously licked the corners of his lips. As soon as he entered the dormitory, the eyes of all the little snakes, whether senior or junior, fell on Riel's. Malfoy crossed his arms and smiled provocatively. Hey, it seems there is a mudblood among us. It's ridiculous that a mudblood should be lucky enough to be in Slytherin. Is there anything more ironic than that? I really don't know what's going on with the Sorting Hat. Mudbloods should go to Gryffindor and be stupid lions. How come they are sorted here? I do think this guy is very interesting, but his background is indeed low, and he is somewhat unqualified to join Slytherin. Mudblood, your name is Riel's Thomas, right? You're very interesting. Malfoy's words were like a fuse, causing the little snakes to start talking, and several little snakes stepped forward, wanting to poke Riel's a few times. Let Riel's experience the perfect bullying process. But before they got close, Pansy stood up in front of Riel's and glared at these people. What do you want to do? Are you afraid that Professor Snape will know if it's difficult to fight? Malfoy mocks +1-1, Pansy worries +1-5, others mock +5-8. Tisk, it's really a good place to increase your mood points. You won't feel guilty when you bully them. Riel's pulled Pansy behind him. Didn't you see that I was being bullied? How could you come forward? It would be boring to interrupt. She's not sensible. Let's continue. Come on, have we just reached that point? Are you going to poke me on the shoulder and then ask me if I'm scared? As soon as he said this, the Slytherin common room fell silent. The little snakes looked at the smiling Riels, and their eyes gradually became weird. Is this person afraid of having a big pie? Or does he have some means and is just waiting for them to take action? None of them were fools. Now that they had doubts, no one dared to move forward. The two sides were in a stalemate for a long time, and the smile on Riel's face became deeper and deeper. In just a short while, the emotional value was close to 100. With such amazing efficiency, why worry about not being rich? Why worry about not being invincible? Why don't you put your noseless feet under your feet and rub them? Pansy held her wand tightly and stood behind Riel's, looking warily at the little snakes opposite her. She saw a smiling Riel's out of the corner of her eye. She almost flew up and kicked him in anger. Can she still laugh at this time? How do you feel? Pansy is angry +1-2, Malfoy is angry +1-0, others are hesitant +3-3. Riel's looked back at Pansy inexplicably, wondering what the little girl was doing. Pansy glared at him angrily, wanting to pounce on him and bite him twice. How dare you be distracted now? Does he really feel nothing? When Malfoy saw Riel's and Pansy flirting with each other, a sudden surge of unknown anger arose in his heart. Pansy, you stand with this filthy mud creature. Before he finished speaking, he heard the sound of the door opening behind him, followed by an emotionless voice. It seems that you are in good spirits and lively. Especially Mr. Malfoy. What did you just say? Mudblood. Snape's cold voice made the little snakes stiffen in fright, and they quickly dispersed to both sides to make way for people to pass through. Malfoy was so frightened that his whole body became stiff, his clothes were soaked with cold sweat, and he showed a smile that was uglier than crying. Professor Snape, maybe you heard me wrong. Snape just gave him a cold look. I don't want to hear this title again, otherwise I will go talk to Lucius myself. Malfoy nodded with an ugly expression, took a few steps back and shrank into the crowd, trying to reduce his presence as much as possible. He knew that since Snape said this, he would definitely dare to do it, and he would inevitably be blasted by Lucius. Snape looked around, and the little snakes that caught his gaze lowered their heads. Only Riel smiled and even waved to say hello to him. In response, Snape just looked at him coldly, turned around and said, "Come in." This sound made all the little snakes turn their heads, and Riel's was no exception. Soon, under the watchful eyes of the little snakes, a girl wearing a Slytherin wizard robe slowly walked into the common room with her arms folded. The girl is tall, has long blonde hair, and her facial features are exquisite and flawless. If she really had a flaw, it might be that her face was expressionless, her emerald-like pupils were cold and there was no emotion at all. Facing the attention of so many people, the girl's face remained calm, her hands were wrapped around the conspicuous bag that was beginning to show its size, and her steps were elegant but not slow. She walked to Snape and stopped, raising her swan neck slightly, which gave her a slight sense of arrogance. But this sense of arrogance is not annoying, but makes people feel that this is how she should be. It's her. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.